You gotta love a good fan theory. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has spawned a whole lot of them over recent years. Now, part of the fun of watching these films, especially for those of you who weren't initially Marvel fans to begin with, is to piece together what we know and pull from source material to come up with a hypothesis on how these intertwining stories will connect and be resolved in upcoming movies. So today, rather than focusing on one specific topic in the MCU, we're going big and counting down our picks for the top 10 Marvel fan theories. And we're talking specifically MCU fan theories here, not the comics, pals. Although, hey, maybe we'll do one of those lists in the future if you guys are into it. Speaking of, if you're watching this in the future and Avengers 4 has already come out, and the majority of these theories on this list are void, well, I guess go watch our top 10 Marvel fan theories part 2 list, cause we're probably gonna do one. But if not, spoiler alert friends, lots of spoilers on this list, so go catch up on those MCU movies. With that in mind, let's jump in. Starting us off in at number 10, Stan Lee the Watcher. Let's begin our list with something really fun. Stan Lee, the genius and creator behind many of our favorite Marvel characters and storylines, has made a cameo in almost every single Marvel cinematic and television adaptation, starting with The Incredible Hulk, the TV show. It's become a fan favorite Easter egg. But some fans think that it's more than just that. Instead, they think that Stan Lee is actually a Watcher, all thanks to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Now in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, we see a quick gag in which Stan is chatting to Watchers, the race of aliens whose purpose is to watch over the multiverse. The first of those Watchers to ever appear in the comics back in Fantastic Four issue 13 from 1963 was Yuatao, who is the Watcher responsible for observing the quadrant that Earth is in. Yuatao is famous for breaking his oath and intervening in the ongoings of humanity occasionally, which is something that Stan Lee in the MCU, although very minimally, has done periodically, often with a funny one-liner. Now some versions of the series suggest that Stan will actually play a minor role as Yuatao in bringing down Thanos in the upcoming Avengers 4 movie. While I don't think that's overly plausible, it's nice to think that Stan has been incorporated in such a wonderful way. And he's pretty harmless as the character, considering that all Yuatao is supposed to do is, well, watch. And at number 9, in the future. Recently it was announced that a new actress will be playing Cassie Lang in the upcoming Avengers 4 film. So why is this a big deal? Well, in both Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man, Cassie was played by Abby Ryder-Fortson, whereas in Avengers 4 and onwards, she'll be played by Emma Fuhrmann, an actress who is significantly older than Fortson. She's a full-blown young adult, guys. This has spawned a lot of theories that Scott, who in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp was trapped in the quantum realm, will return years later when he gets out. It suggests that the Avengers have been working away in secret to come up with a way to reverse Thanos' snap. It's been years since Infinity War happened. Now in addition to this, there has been speculation that Cassie Lang will suit up as well, leading a version of the Young Avengers that will eventually be added to the MCU. Up next, number 8, Pulp Fiction. As many a Pulp Fiction fan knows, Samuel L. Jackson as Jules Winfield says the famous line, "The path of the righteous man." It's supposed to be a quote from Ezekiel 25:17, which, if you notice in Captain America Winter Soldier, is on Nick Fury's tombstone. Nice Easter egg, right? Well, one user on Reddit by the name of Mugwump28 suggests that it's more than that. That quote doesn't actually exist in real life in the Bible. That wording just isn't in there. And fans of Pulp Fiction know that Jules gave up his career as a hitman at the end of the film. This could mean that perhaps he changed his name and became Nick Fury, if those worlds are one and the same. Think about it. The glowing briefcase in Pulp Fiction is something that could easily fit into the world of the MCU. While this theory will likely be debunked thanks to the younger version of Fury who will appear in the Captain Marvel movie, it's still a fun theory to humor, at least. Up next, number 7, Winter Soldier killed everyone's parents. Well, okay, maybe not everybody, but one theory suggests that Tony Stark's folks aren't the only victims of the brainwashed Bucky Barnes. A YouTuber by the name of Darelog posted a theory video to their channel in which they point out an interesting detail. In Captain America Winter Soldier, one of the Winter Soldier's activation words is none other than homecoming. So why is this important? Not only is homecoming the title of one of Spidey's major story arcs in the comics, it's also the subtitle of his solo MCU film. We don't know how his parents died in the MCU, nor Uncle Ben, although the latter is implied to have died more recently to the time in which Parker began his days as a Caution Crusader. So could Bucky Barnes be responsible for Mr. and Mrs. Parker's deaths? Maybe. And at number 6, Magneto is the Maximoff's father. Despite the X-Men characters currently awaiting their integration into the MCU, one user on Reddit has suggested that perhaps the plan at Marvel Studios has always been to connect the Maximoff twins to Magneto, who for a long time in the comics was their dad. The user named Twitchy Cookie speculates that the reason why the twins survived that close encounter with a bomb wasn't just sheer luck. The bomb wasn't a dud. It was simply deactivated by their father using his metal controlling powers. Now the theory suggests that their father died in the process, since at the time that this theory was thought up, it was prior to Marvel Studios having the rights to the comic Giant's mutant characters. But Now that isn't an issue, so perhaps one of the ways Magneto will be integrated into the MCU is through some sort of background with the twins, particularly with Wanda. Another popular theory also suggests that Scarlet Witch will be the transitional piece in introducing the mutants into the world of the MCU, with rumors that the character may be getting her own story that will debut on Disney's upcoming streaming service. And she might be evil. Moving on to number 5, Avengers vs X-Men. Come on, you know this is gonna happen at some point. Now that the X-Men rights will soon be in the hands of Disney and Marvel Studios, the possibilities for crossover stories are rich. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It'll be a while before we see the 2012 Avengers vs X-Men event come to life on the big screen. The X-Men will need to be established in the MCU, and plenty of them in order to really do the story justice. Perhaps this is something we might see on the horizon of Phase 5 or 6, plus the rights won't be officially transferred over until 2019, so development on any X-Men solo films will legally have to begin after that. But stay optimistic, friends, the MCU always does justice to its crossovers, so if this does end up being slotted for the future in the movie pipeline, we'll surely get one hell of a story. And at number 4, Fox vs Marvel Studios. This is one of my personal favorites. So this theory takes into consideration that there are two universes in which Marvel's properties live, just like in real life. There's the Marvel Studios MCU one and the Fox one, and the reason why they're different comes down to one major factor: Hydra. In the Fox cinematic universe, the first X-Men film that came out in 2000 stuck with Magneto's origins. He was a boy during World War II and the Holocaust, and that's how he lost his family. It's an integral part to the character's backstory that largely informs his ideologies and the way that he operates, fighting for supremacy of mutants over humans and mutant liberation. And it's also how he discovered his powers, being experimented on by the Nazis. But in the MCU during World War II, Hydra conquered Germany, stopping Hitler before the Holocaust happened, meaning that Eric was never imprisoned or experimented on, and he would have never discovered his powers. In the Fox universe, Hydra never rose to power, meaning S.H.I.E.L.D. was never created in retaliation, which means Cap would never come to be and Howard Stark would never have access to the kinds of technology that led him to creating the arc reactor. Therefore, the Avengers never came to be. But because of Magneto's activity, mutants rose up out of the shadows and became a prominent factor to that world. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Rumor has it that this theory was too close to home, so the studios actually squashed it. But that's just more fuel feeding the theory fire, friends. This theory also raises a lot of questions as to how Magneto's character will be handled when the MCU tried to integrate him, and if that means they'll be toying with alternate worlds in order to properly incorporate his true backstory. Moving on to number 3, where has Captain Marvel been? Fighting off the Skrull threat, or at least one prominent theory suggests that. So this theory has been making the rounds in anticipation to Captain Marvel's release, and it tries to answer the question why Carol Danvers hasn't been present in the MCU to date. So let's backtrack for a second. At the end of Avengers Infinity War, in the post-credits scene, we see Nick Fury about to be dusted. He reaches for what can only be described as a fancy little space beeper, and sends out what we can assume is a distress call. As he's dusted, thanks to Thanos' snap at wiping out half of all living beings, we cut to a shot of the beeper on the ground, and a logo appears on its screen, Captain Marvel's logo. So this means that Nick Fury is fully aware of Captain Marvel's existence, something that was further confirmed by the Captain Marvel trailer release, in which we see a young Nick Fury with Carol Danvers after she's come to Earth. This could mean several things, and this is where the theory comes into play. Let's get hypothetical for a sec. Say at the end of Captain Marvel, it's decided between Danvers and Fury, and potentially S.H.I.E.L.D., that the best way to deal with the Skrull threat, which, based on the trailer, we know that S.H.I.E.L.D. is privy to, is to send Carol out across the universe to eliminate Skrull agents. Carol can see Skrulls in disguise. She punches her grandma in the trailer, clearly knowing that it's a hidden agent. Now we know that the quantum realm is important to Captain Marvel's storyline thanks to their quantum physicist consultant saying so in an interview. So this could potentially mean that she's using the quantum realm, controlling her navigation via her powers, being the most powerful hero in the MCU to date, as said by Marvel Studios. She's traveling around and wiping out Skrull agents who are in hiding. The beeper is a way of communicating with her while she's doing it. Now it may be archaic, but look at the way that Hank Pym was communicating with Scott in Ant-Man and the Wasp when he was in the quantum realm. Hank used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's likely that he's the one who worked on that kind of communication tech back in the day, especially since he and Janet were privy to the quantum realm back when they were Ant-Man and the Wasp. The reason why Fury hasn't contacted Carol until now is because he knows that she's dealing with a much larger threat to the galaxy, and it isn't until things go real sour with Thanos that he sends the distress call to her, playing one of his last cards in order to ensure that the galaxy isn't totally could be the case. What do you guys think? Let us know in those comments below. Moving on to number 2, Secret Invasion. Ever since the first Avengers film, the pieces of the puzzle pertaining to Thanos' introduction and conflict with the MCU were put into place. Phase 1 ended with the 2012 Avengers film. Phase 3 ends with Avengers 4. Phase 4 will begin with the Spider-Man sequel, Far From Home. So, naturally, considering how Marvel Studios has set the foundation for Infinity War years and years in advance, it makes sense that they'd use the same successful model in setting up the next big baddie to threaten the safety of the Marvel Universe in the future. And many people think that that antagonist will be a whole darn race: the Skrulls. Why? Well, for starters, the Skrulls are being integrated into the MCU in the upcoming Captain Marvel movie, set to be released next year as the second last movie of Phase 3. This means that going into Phase 4, the Skrulls have already been established. Based off of our last theory, you know that the Skrulls are no walk in the park. If they've been going around the universe secretly infiltrating races, having them infiltrate Earth on a grander scale, and perhaps some of Captain Marvel's work in defusing that threat that we mentioned in our last number was reset based on what happens in Avengers 4 and if Thanos' actions are reversed, then there's a darn good chance that they might be the next biggest threat. This is also supported by the Secret Invasion storyline, a major comic book arc in which exactly that happened, although all of the events surrounding it were different. But you guys get it. Secret Invasion could be the next thing. And finally, in at number 1, the time travel theory. Remember when Marvel Studios was dropping major hints before the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp, being like, yo guys, you need to watch this movie to fully understand the quantum realm cause it'll be super important for Captain Marvel and the rest of the MCU. Well, whether or not that pans out or if it was just a desperate attempt to make sure the Ant-Man sequel would actually do well at the box office, we do know that the quantum realm will be super important. So much so that fans across the globe have pieced together many a potential theory that involves it, as to how it will be used to reverse the damage that Thanos has caused. One of those theories is the time travel theory, arguably the most popular one to hit the interwebs in the past year. Long story short, Ant-Man, who will get out of the quantum realm by some means, will end up helping the remaining Avengers concoct a plan to go back in time, all to prevent Thanos from getting all of the Infinity Stones. This will somehow involve technology from Tony Stark, who Doctor Strange made sure to save during the battle on Titan, having foresight that he would need to remain alive. Now, photos have leaked from the film set of the characters back at the Battle of New York that occurred in the first Avengers movie, wearing special bracelets with some sort of gadget on their hands and wrists. Ant-Man is also there, and at the time of the first Avengers movie, he wasn't a costume crusader yet, meaning there must be some sort of time travel involved in order to get him there. However the plan goes down, many believe that the quantum realm will be used to travel back, using the knowledge that Scott Lang picked up from Hank and Janet, however briefly, in order to help save the day. Or perhaps the knowledge that Captain Marvel has of the quantum realm, however she'll be integrated in Avengers 4. Alright, there we have it friends, so much speculation. Which of these theories do you think is the most likely to come true? And which ones do you think have no chance in hell of ever being a reality? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know what you think. If you guys would like us to do a fan theories pertaining specifically to the comics, also give us a shout about that as well. Dug this video? Well, hit that like button, and subscribe if you guys want to hang out with us some more. We also have a nifty little playlist currently flashing on your screen right now filled with all things Marvel, from the comics to the MCU to much more. Go on, give it a click. In the meantime though, thanks for watching friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.